I love pro wrestling. I also hate it, but that's kind of why we're here. I've gotten tired of people talking about pro wrestling with any sense of authority and no use of perspective. For the last 40 years, the idea of national and even international wrestling promotions has been somewhat the norm, as the territory system would be decimated amidst the rise of the WWF, cable television, and the decline of various cities and states due to economic instability, and the decline of many American businesses due to deregulation, foreign competition, and various other fun reckonings America endured in the 1980s. A lot of wrestling fans know the basics of the three most commonly discussed eras of pro wrestling: the rise of nationalization, the Monday Night Wars, and whatever they'll call this era when it's all said and done. But there's so much more to wrestling history, and especially of looking at intrigue, trauma, and just insane human beings. There's so much more than these three eras. And I'm looking to find out as much as I can with what's available to me and bring you what the hell I think, what I've learned, and maybe tie in some other stuff I figure out along the way. This is Historically Speaking, and I'm Matt Ryan. So how can I not talk about a national promotion in this episode when I did all that f***ing prologue? Especially since I know you're listening to this right now and you see the first national promotion in this episode's metadata or the logo for the thumb art or whatever the f***. But what we're going to be talking about is the International Wrestling Alliance and International Championship Wrestling. It's one company. It's just very, very, very confusing. What is also confusing is the first time a lot of people like me saw this show, saw this wrestling company. And it was on an episode of Cheap Seats on ESPN Classic.
Deep in the ESPN tape library, the worldwide leader in classic sports launched a series designed to take a new look at old games. They called it Cheap Seats with Ron Parker.
Oh, hey, welcome to Cheap Seats. Today we'll be rewriting the Declaration of Independence in common street slang. Word. But first we're going to watch some international championship wrestling. Now, different institutions have different takes on what international means. For international basketball, it's the trapezoid-shaped lane. For the International House of Pancakes, it's a little something we like to call boysenberry syrup. And for international championship wrestling, as far as we can tell, international means the unbridled celebration of the fat old dude, who may or may not be foreign. Now, before we take you ringside...
Hell, they did two separate episodes, did the Sklar brothers, on IWA/ICW in Season 1 and Season 4. And look... would I love to pad the rest of this episode with just clips from the Sklar brothers being much smarter and funnier than me? Yes. So I can go play pro wrestling sim and maybe take a bath and allow my ADHD to take control. But no, I'm going to keep doing this for you. Yeah, because I care. Right. The story has a lot of people, a lot of reasons why, and a lot of things that could have happened, a lot of things that did happen, and a lot of them interesting, weird, and quintessentially pro wrestling. First and foremost, we have Eddie Einhorn, a man who would come to own a piece of the Chicago White Sox, help launch the WFL through his TVS television service, which was built off a successful college sports broadcast as a syndicated package, and was the initial engine and money of the IWA. Now, if you love and watch college basketball to any degree, especially the NCAA tournament, Eddie Einhorn's a big reason why you can do that every single March. Einhorn's connection to college basketball dates back to 1958, when he was a law student at Northwestern University and just 22 years old, and he had the idea of broadcasting the NCAA championship game between Kentucky and Seattle nationally on the radio. This was not a thing at the time. So with a minimal rights fee and no real infrastructure that was there before this, the 22-year-old was able to collect a group of radio stations that would be a network to broadcast the game across the country.
Friday and Saturday flew in here Wednesday from Seattle, Washington. Beck moves in against Elgin Baylor. He's 6'7", 1 inch taller. We're ready to go. Stand by. Tap goes to Seattle as Baylor taps it over to Ogoric. He hands out deep now to Charlie Brown. Down the right side to Ogorek and back to...
2 years later, Einhorn would circle back to this with the NIT and develop TVS because the NIT was not being aired anywhere on television, and the NCAA championship, which is a competitor to the NIT at the time, would only air in the areas that featured the teams in the national championship because of archaic blackout rules that still stick to the hull of televised sports like it was a barnacle of annoyance and bad business. And then 8 years later, at the height of the UCLA run with John Wooden and Lou Alcindor, on January 20th, 1968, the Bruins and the University of Houston Cougars, were led by Elvin Hayes, would have a rematch of their 1967 NCAA men's tournament semifinal inside Houston's Astrodome.
I think I know. It's the same as my reaction. It's better than you would imagine.
Well, it's just overpowering. It's unbelievable to look around and see 55,000 people watching a basketball game. I think this game will do more for basketball around the country, and particularly in the Southwest, than any one single event that's ever occurred.
It's a big trip down.
Einhorn not only helped develop and pitch the idea, but paid a $27,000 rights fee for the game, and with 150 stations, aired the game of the century, where the hometown Cougars would get revenge by not only winning by a narrow margin of 71-69, but in front of the largest audience to ever watch a college basketball game to that point, they ended UCLA's historic undefeated streak.
Try to kill the 12 seconds and hold the ball and run the clock out. UCLA must gamble. They must press. They're 2 points down with 12 seconds to go.
Hayes with the ball. It's the Hound and the Dogs. 3 seconds.
The Houston Cougars have snapped UCLA's 47-game winning streak, and pandemonium at the Astrodome.
Einhorn wrestling fans saw a national company as huge potential just years before Vincent K. McMahon took over the World Wrestling Federation and began his national expansion. And as you can see here, if Einhorn puts his mind to something, he's going to go all out to try to see it get done. So, instead of trying to develop something with either a collection of NWA promoters or even associating with the burgeoning AWA, who at the time featured some of the biggest stars in wrestling,
All-Star Wrestling, 60 minutes of the world's finest mat action, featuring wrestling stars from the United States, Europe, England, Australia, Algeria, Canada, Puerto Rico, Japan. Great wrestling stars from all over the world on All-Star Wrestling.
and its territory featuring major markets such as Chicago, Milwaukee, soon San Francisco, Denver. You know what? More on this later, like way later. Einhorn would develop his own brand with help from people who knew what it was like to compete and, well, literally fight other promoters. Yet again, something we'll get to later, but you're gonna love it, I promise. Einhorn's TVS would also be one of the forebears to ESPN, as it would be non-network owned or affiliated stations a chance to get high-level college sports, and nor the World League, which looked to be a challenger to the NFL, whose story would very much mirror the high-minded for the time concept of the IWA. Both the World League and the IWA had a similar idea to recruit the best names with big money, and they thought the audiences would come running and they would be an automatic alternative. And while the WFL had to battle the NFL amidst a massive player strike and high level of animus halfway through a decade into the AFL-NFL merger, the IWA had to deal with the NWA and the WWF, and both of those were used to opposition and could load for bear when they needed to, which was shown in the first episode of this show in the First Georgia War, which the NWA was just coming out of. It's going to be in the feed. Don't worry about it. It's going to be in the feed. It'll be here soon. Opportunity was there, but who'd be willing to take this big of a risk? It seems, per a story from the Ring the Damn Bell blog, Einhorn had $1 million ready to put into the IWA. So he was ready for a fight with plenty of people who will be looking to take out the IWA before it could get any foothold in any of the markets in the country. And the IWA was going to take big swings at some of the biggest markets in wrestling: the Carolinas, New York, and Atlanta, Georgia. To run against the NWA in itself was a ballsy but not infrequent move of the era, as throughout the country, throughout the 1970s and into the 1980s, there would be several attempts to run opposition in major territories, whether it's due to the area showing a thriving passion for wrestling, and or the most frequent reason, personal or professional animosity. You add to that, you're fighting a war on essentially three fronts that had tremendous control on their markets through a litany of means, nefarious and legal. Fuck, you're trying to go for a lot in one go. That is a big bite. And the WWF, they took a similar approach, and yet again, we'll get to it later. 8 years later, they went for something similar, but they went slowly. They were taking over markets to begin with in a scale, like with California and Los Angeles in 82 and 83, and selecting other markets before the big push with Hogan in 84. And much like Vincent J. McMahon would do in 1984, Eddie Einhorn looked for the one man who seemed perfect for what he wanted.
Welcome to another edition of NWA Championship Wrestling, featuring the top professional wrestlers from around the world. Sanctioned by the sport's #1 governing body, the National Wrestling Alliance and Southern Championship Wrestling Incorporated. Stay with us for an hour of action and excitement in the world's oldest sport.
George Scott was a legendary tag team wrestler who eventually would retire, and at the time Einhorn was developing the IWA, was considered one of the best bookers for a big territory, any territory to be honest with you, in pro wrestling. Scott was a tremendous finder and developer of talent, developing the Mid-Atlantic roster for Jim Crockett Promotions into one of the best in the business. In that decade alone, Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, Blackjack Mulligan, Greg Valentine. That was the son of the man who helped define him as a booker, Johnny Valentine.
One of the world's best wrestlers. He has come to Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling at great expense and time to Jim Crockett Promotions. Mr. Valentine has wrestled all over the world, and in Tokyo, Japan, he wrestled to a sellout crowd of over 25,000 people. Mr. Valentine, you have come to the Carolinas, and we, I think, have some of the best wrestlers in the world here.
Well, I believe you do. I've looked at the list of wrestlers that are in the Carolinas, and they're very impressive. I like to wrestle where they have good wrestlers and good wrestling, big houses, big arenas. This is what I love, because I like tough competition. I like a lot of money piled in those arenas. This is what I'm interested in, because I'm a professional. It's great to be in a new area where I've never been before, because it's conquering new territories, conquering new worlds.
Well, Mr. Valentine, you conquered quite a few areas in wrestling.
Yes, it's just like Alexander the Great sat down and cried when he had conquered the whole world. He had nothing else to conquer, and this is how it's been for me. I've always looked for new worlds to conquer.
Mr. Valentine, you're a very tall man. Could you tell the folks out there how tall and what your weight is?
Well, I'm 6'4" and 260. This isn't necessarily an advantage, because I believe that wrestling talent itself is everything. Size is one of the least important things of the fact. A man can weigh 190 pounds and still be good.
Thank you, Mr. Valentine.
Scott would get his first shot as a booker following a career-ending back injury that would see John Ringley, the man tasked with running Jim Crockett Promotions following Big Jim Crockett's passing the same year, 1973, calling up Scott to offer him the booking job. Per an amazing piece on Scott from The Slam up in Canada, and an interview that the legendary Les Thatcher did with Dick Bourne for the Mid-Atlantic Gateway, here was Scott's philosophy. What I do remember is George Scott mentioning to the Crockett's that he was going to kill the territory in essence to rebuild it, which was a bold statement to make back then, or to make anyway when you're looking for a job. I'm going to kill your business so I can build it back up again. Scott's big plan was to bring in Johnny Valentine into the territory and base the promotion around him. Charlotte had traditionally been a tag team territory, and the idea was to change the focus. Wahoo McDaniel and the Super Destroyer, Don Jardine, were the two other initial single stars.
And Mr. Super Destroyer, Mr. Bounty Hunter, after Sonny King finishes with Johnny Valentine tonight. It's coming Thursday night in Norfolk at the Scope. He will wrestle you.
Well, let me just say this one thing, Sonny King. If you can get past Johnny Valentine tonight in Hampton, then I've got a little surprise for you. I've still got that little check of $7,500 from Johnny Valentine. And you know what? To get to it, Daddy, you got to get through the Super Destroyer. You got to get to the mass, and then your big reward is going to be the $7,500. You know, they don't call me the bounty hunter for nothing. Because when there's money involved, the Super Destroyer is right on the spot, Daddy. He's right there. You're going to have your brown power. You're going to have your black power. But when it comes to the green power, man, the Super Destroyer is there to collect. You know, they're sending a boy to do a man's job. You know, a little baby brother all the way down through history has never been able to take care of his big brother's duties. And what makes you think now, Sonny King, that you'll be able to avenge your brother's destruction by taking care of the Super Destroyer? In Norfolk or any other place, you'll never be able to do it, Sonny King. But I'm going to keep the check at ringside, and I'm going to have the mask on. And if you can do what your brother hasn't done, then you will get a double prize, the mask in one hand and a check in the other.
When I did the promotion for the cards in the Carolinas, Valentine was probably the hottest card I had in there, Scott said, but it took me 6 or 7 months for people to start getting to him, but after then he was ungodly real. We did ungodly business with him. Jack Briscoe, who held the NWA World title during the period, thought that Scott and former wrestler turned booker Louis Tillett were two of the best to ever do the job of booker. Briscoe said what made George different as a booker and an excellent booker was what he would always approach each individual involved in the match and get their side of it, their opinion of everything. Most bookers, when you got there, they had this finish laid out and what they want to do and what direction they wanted to go between them and the promoter. But George took the approach of getting the input from each wrestler involved in it. Two men with the track record of Einhorn and Scott partnering up at the height of their powers and connections in their mutual worlds would have been a force to be reckoned with. And we'll go into what could have happened and what would have happened on the next episode of Historically Speaking as we meet more of the players in this story of the first national wrestling promotion. We'll meet an AFL legend and someone who punched out Toots Mondt and a Russian who was in fact a French Canadian. This has been a production of the Intergalactic Sports Network and Ember Media. This show was written by me, voiced by me, produced by me, and all the audio and other comments and research are in the show notes. So thanks so much for spending some time with me. We'll be back with another episode next week. Or, I might get hit by a boat. Who the fuck knows? The future is weird and scary, and, well, so's the present. But, historically speaking, I've been Matt Ryan.
International Championship Wrestling, featuring the superstars of professional wrestling. Mil Mascaras, the Mongols, Mighty Igor, Ox Baker, Tex McKenzie, Dick the Bulldog Brower, Argentino Apollo, Gino Brito and Dino Bravo, the Love Brothers, Rip Hawk, and Luis Martinez.
International Wrestling Association presents another edition of International Championship Wrestling. Hi again, wrestling fans. Jack Reynolds at ringside, along with my partner Tex McKenzie. And boy, have we got a show today, Tex.